First class is farther back.
You are in my seat. Your name is not on this flight.
The system is wrong.
You knew I was flying to Paris.
You cannot prove for anything! We recovered your messages!
You betrayed the wrong woman.
The man in seat 1A did not look up when Vanessa Brooks told him he was sitting in her place. He only lifted his champagne glass and said, "First class is in the other direction." For one sharp second, the cabin seemed to stop breathing. Vanessa stood in the aisle of the overnight flight to Paris, one hand wrapped around the strap of her leather tote. Behind her, passengers continued boarding through the narrow doorway. Wheels struck the floor. Overhead bins slammed shut. A flight attendant laughed softly near the galley, but inside Vanessa, something went still. She had heard words like that before. Not always spoken, so clearly sometimes they came as a glance at a hotel desk, a pause at a boardroom door, a security guard asking whether she was grieved or someone important. The question was always the same. Do you belong here? Vanessa was 41 years old. She was the founder and chief executive officer of Aurelia Energy Group, one of the fastest-growing renewable energy companies in the United States. She employed more than 9,000 people. Her decisions moved markets, redirected capital, and changed the futures of entire communities. But none of that was visible in the soft cabin light. What people saw was a black woman traveling alone. No assistant, no security detail, no loud jewelry. Just a tailored black coat, tired eyes, and a calm face shaped by a very long week. She had spent the previous 72 hours inside a conference room in Midtown Manhattan, negotiating the acquisition of Solène Technologies, a French solar engineering company. The deal had nearly collapsed twice. Investors had threatened to walk. Lawyers had argued over every line. Vanessa had stayed at the table. She listened. She pushed. She gave ground where it did not matter and refused where it did. By sunrise, Aurelia had won. Now she wanted nothing more than 12 quiet hours in Suite 1A before the final signing meeting in Paris. The lead flight attendant had welcomed her by name at the door. "Good evening, Ms. Brooks. Your suite is on the left." Vanessa had thanked her, walked through the softly lit cabin and expected to find an empty seat. Instead, she found him. He appeared to be close to 60. Silver hair, ruddy skin, navy suit, gold watch. The kind of man who wore confidence like a family inheritance. His briefcase occupied the footrest. His jacket hung over the privacy wall. A tablet glowed on the tray in front of him. He had already taken possession of the space. Vanessa checked her phone. Aurelia Airlines partnership booking. Flight to Paris. Suite 1A, there was no mistake. "Excuse me, sir," she said again. "That is my assigned seat." This time he looked at her. His eyes moved from her shoes to her face, slow and deliberate. Then came the smile, amused, dismissive. "You should check your boarding pass," she said. "Premium economy is farther back." The words were quiet, but they carried. A woman across the aisle lowered her magazine. A businessman removed one-two earbud. Two passengers near the galley exchanged a glance. Vanessa felt exhaustion press behind her eyes. She thought of her mother, who had cleaned offices at night and taught her never to confuse silence with weakness. "People will decide what you are before you speak," her mother used to say. "Speak anyway." Vanessa drew a controlled breath. "I have checked my pass," she said. "My name is Vanessa Brooks. This is Suite 1A. I need you to review your own ticket and move to the seat assigned to you." The man leaned back. "My assistant handles my travel," he said. "I always sit here." "That does not make it your seat." His smile disappeared. For the first time, he studied her more carefully. Not with respect, with this inattention. He was not used to being challenged, especially by someone he had already placed beneath him. "Look," he said, lowering his voice. "I have assigned a flight attendant. Let them sort you out after takeoff." Vanessa did not step back. Around them, the cabin noise seemed to fade under the weight of the moment. This was no longer about leather seats, champagne, or a number printed on a boarding pass. It was about who was expected to surrender, who was believed, who was allowed to take up space without explanation. Vanessa met his eyes. "No," she said. One word. Clear, calm, final. The man set his glass down with a hard click, and several rows away, a flight attendant turned toward them. The flight attendant approached with quick, controlled steps, her smile already strained before she reached them. "Is there a problem here?" Her name tag read Emily Parker. Vanessa turned slightly, making room in the aisle. The man in Suite 1A answered first. "Yes," he said. This woman is refusing to leave. Emily's eyes moved to him, then to Vanessa. She noticed the silver hair, the tailored suit, the gold watch. Then she looked at Vanessa's tired face and plain black coat. The decision happened in less than a second. Vanessa saw it. So did the woman across the aisle. Emily softened her voice when she spoke to the man. "I'm sorry for the disturbance, sir." Then she turned to Vanessa. "Mom, boarding can be confusing. May I see your pass?" The words were polite. The tone was not. Vanessa held Emily's gaze. "My pass is valid," she said, "and he is sitting in my assigned suite." "Of course," Emily replied. "But sometimes passengers enter the premium cabin by mistake. We can help you find your correct seat." The man leaned back with a satisfied breath. Vanessa felt anger rise in her chest. Not wild anger, not the kind that burned without direction. This anger was cold. It came from memory, from years of being questioned after showing credentials, from being introduced as an assistant at meetings she had organized, from watching people offer warmth to the person beside her, then suspicion to her. She knew what would happen if she raised her voice. The story would change. She would become difficult, aggressive, a threat. So Vanessa kept her hand still. She unlocked her phone and held up the screen. "Please read it carefully." Emily took the phone. The cabin lights reflected across the glass. Her eyes moved over the name, the flight number, and the seat assignment. Vanessa Brooks. Suite 1A. Emily's expression shifted. Only slightly. But the color left her cheeks. "Oh," she said. The man frowned. "What does it say?" Emily handed the phone. "It does show Suite 1A. Vanessa nodded once. Then asked him to move. Emily hesitated. That hesitation said more than an apology could have. She still wanted another explanation, some harmless system error that would preserve her first assumption. Instead of addressing the man directly, she pulled the company tablet from her belt. "There may be a duplicate assignment," she said. "These things happen. They should not happen on an international flight," Vanessa replied. "But if they do, the person with the confirmed reservation should not be treated like an intruder." The older woman across the aisle gave a quiet nod. Emily heard it. So did the man. But his fingers were router now. "My assistant booked this seat," he said. "I always sit in 1A. Vanessa looked at him. "You keep saying that as if habit creates owner." His jaw hardened. Emily cleared her soul. "Boarding pass?" He stared at her as though she had insulted him. "I already told you. My assistant handles all of that. Do you a paper pass? On your phone, no?
A paper pass?
No, then I need your full name." He gave a sharp, irritated sigh. Richard Whitmore. The name landed differently for Vanessa. She had heard it before, not recently enough to place it. But it touched something in her memory. A financial report, a competitor profile, a name connected to the Paris negotiations. Emily typed into the tablet. The screen loaded. Her brow tightened. She typed again. Richard watched her face. "What is taking so long?" Emily swallowed. "I'm checking the premium cabin manifest and..." She did not answer. The boarding noise around them had changed. People were still moving, but more slowly. Now more passengers were watching. A man standing near the galley lowered his carry-on without placing it in the bin. Emily searched again. Her fingers were less steady. Richard sat forward. "Refresh system." "Already did. Use the full system." Emily opened another menu. Sumpsiro watched every movement. She no longer felt tired. Something was wrong. Not rude, not careless. Wrong. Emily looked up. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm not finding you in Suite 1A. Richard's face flushed. "Then the system is broken. I'm not finding you anywhere in the premium cabin." His voice rose. "That is impossible." Emily glanced at Vanessa, then back at him. "So I need you to remain calm." "I am calm." He was not. His breathing had changed. His shoulders were rigid, one hand pressed against the armrest as if the seat might be taken from him by force. Vanessa studied him. This was no longer the reaction of a man embarrassed by a booking mistake. This was fear. Emily looked down at the tablet one more time, then she froze. The cabin seemed to narrow around them. "Mr. Whitmore," she said quietly, "your name is not on this flight." Richard Whitmore stared at Emily as if she had spoken in another language. "That is not possible." His voice came out lower this time, less certain. Emily looked back at the tablet, then tried his passport number after asking him to take it from his jacket. Nothing, no seat assignment, no active reservation, no record of him boarding the Air Quiet. Even the passengers still had stopped moving. Mind the passengers still standing in the aisles. Richard snatched his passport from Emily's hand. "Your system is wrong, sir. Please lower your voice. I walked through the gate. I came down the jet bridge. I am sitting on the aircraft, clearly. I am on flight." Emily pressed her lips together. Her training told her to calm the passenger. Her instincts told her something much more serious was happening. Vanessa watched Richard closely. His arrogance was still there, but now it had cracks. His left hand kept tightening around the passport wallet. His eyes shifted toward the aircraft door, then toward the forward galley, then back to Emily. He was measuring exits. That was when Daniel Foster appeared. The senior purser moved down the aisle with the firm, practiced stride of a man who had handled medical emergencies, unruly passengers, and mechanical delays for more than 20 years. "What is going on?" Emily stepped toward him and lowered her voice, though everyone nearby could still hear. "This passenger is not on the manifest." Daniel's expression changed immediately. He looked at Richard. "Sir, may I see your identification and boarding pass?" Richard lifted his chin. "I have already been interrogated enough." "This is not an interrogation," Daniel said. "It is a required security verification." Vanessa noticed the difference in his tone. No accusation, no assumption, just procedure. That was how it should have been from the beginning. Richard gave him the passport, but nothing else. Daniel entered the information into his own tablet. The seconds passed slowly. A soft warning tone sounded from the device. Daniel read the screen twice. Then he looked up. "Mr. Whitmore, you had a reservation on this flight. It was canceled earlier today." Richard's face went still. For the first time, he had no immediate answer. Vanessa felt the name strike her memory again. Whitmore Global Holdings, a private investment group. Aggressive acquisitions, hostile legal tactics. A company that had submitted a late bid for Solan Technologies. She said nothing yet. Daniel continued. "The reservation was canceled shortly after noon. I did not cancel it. I cannot tell you who initiated the cancellation from this device. Then reinstate. We cannot reinstate a canceled ticket to and is closed." Richard's anger returned. "Do you know who I am?" Daniel did not blink. Onan did not blink. "At this moment, sir, U.S. and unauthorized aircraft." A murmur moved through the cabin. Richard stood suddenly. Emily stepped back. "Stay where you are. I am going to speak with the captain." "No, sir. You are going to remain here while we determine how you entered the aircraft." The sentence cut through the cabin. Richard's eyes hardened. Vanessa saw it clearly now. He had not made an innocent mistake. Daniel touched the earpiece connected to the crew communications system. "Gate security. This is the forward cabin. I need verification on a passenger named Richard Whitmore. Passport information is coming through now." A response crackled into his ear. Daniel listened. His face tightened. "When did he scan?" Another pause. Then Daniel looked toward the aircraft door. "He did not scan." Emily covered her mouth. Richard's breathing grew louder. Daniel lowered his hand from the earpiece. "The gate system has no record of your boarding pass being scanned. That is your problem." "No, sir. It is now a federal security matter." Richard took one step into the aisle. Daniel blocked him. "Sit down. You cannot detain me. We are not in the air. You are being instructed to leave." Richard glanced past him toward Vanessa. There was something in his eyes now, not embarrassment, recognition. He knew who she was. Vanessa felt the final pain settle into place. "You knew this was my seat," she said. Richard said nothing. "You knew I was flying to Paris." His jaw tightened. Daniel turned toward her. "Miss Brooks, do you know this man?" "Not personally." Vanessa held Richard's gaze. The silence deepened. "Whitmore Global lost the Solan bid yesterday," she said. "My company won it." Emily looked from Vanessa to Richard. The woman she had nearly sent to the main cabin was not simply a wealthy traveler. She was the chief executive at the center of a multi-billion-dollar international deal. Richard's face darkened. "You think everything is about you?" "No," Vanessa said. "But this is." Daniel's radio came alive. "Forward cabin, security is on the way. Hold departure." Outside the window, the jet bridge remained attached. Inside, Richard slowly lowered himself back into Vanessa's seat, but his hand moved toward the black briefcase on the footrest. Vanessa saw it. So did Daniel. "Do not touch that bag," Daniel ordered. Richard froze. Richard kept his hand suspended above the briefcase. For one long second, no one moved. Then he leaned back and slowly raised both hands. "I was reaching for my phone." Daniel's eyes stayed on the bag. "Keep your hands where I can see them." The polished calm of first class had vanished. Champagne glasses sat untouched. Passengers who had been pretending not to watch were now openly staring. A man across the aisle held his phone at chest level, recording without shame. Emily stood near the galley, pale and rigid. She had begun this encounter believing Vanessa was the problem. Now an unauthorized passenger was sitting in a seat he had targeted on a flight he had entered without a valid scans. The thought made her stomach twist. Richard looked toward Vanessa. You are making this into somethings it is not. Vanessa remained beside the suite, her tote still over one shoulder. I have not made you do anything. You accused me in front of an entire cabin. You boarded an international flight without authorization. My ticket was canceled without my knowledge. Then you should have stopped at the gate and asked for help. His eyes narrowed. You would enjoy that, wouldn't you? But she did not take the bait. This is not about enjoyment. Not about enjoyment. It is about accountability. A quiet voice came from across the aisle. She is right. The older woman who had been watching lowered her magazine completely. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice did not. If my ticket had been canceled, I would not have followed someone through the gate. I would have gone to the desk. Richard turned toward her. No one asked for your opinion. The woman held his gaze. That may be the problem. You seem to believe no one else matters. The cabin went still again. Vanessa looked at the woman and gave a small nod. It was not a dramatic act. No applause followed. It mattered. Sometimes dignity was defended by the person being attacked. Sometimes it was defended by a stranger who finally sounded on to look away. Heavy footsteps sit on the jet bridge. 2 Port Authority police officers entered the aircraft, followed by a security supervisor in a dark suit. The first officer, a broad man with closely cropped gray hair, spoke with calm authority. Who is Richard Whitmore? Daniel pointed toward Suite 1A, that passenger. His reservation was canceled, and there is no gate scan associated with his passport. The officer approached. Mr. Whitmore, stand up slowly. Richard did not move. I want an attorney. You may contact one after we remove you from the aircraft. I have committed no crime. Sir's expression remained neutral. You entered a secured jet bridge without presenting a valid boarding document. We need to determine how that happened. Richard looked toward the open aircraft door, then toward the aisle behind him. There was nowhere to go. Stand up, the officer repeated. Richard gripped the armrests. I have an urgent business matter in Paris. That does not change the instruction. The second officer moved closer. Richard rose. His face had lost its earlier confidence. Sweat gathered near his hairline. His expensive suit now looked too tight across his shoulders. Daniel reached for the black briefcase. Richard reacted at once. Do not touch that. Every officer stiffened. The first officer stepped between Richard and the bag. What is inside? Confidential business documents. Then you can identify them during the security check. You have no right to search my property. The security supervisor spoke from behind the officers. Sir, this bag entered a commercial aircraft during a documented access violation. It will be screened. Richard's jaw worked, but no words came. Vanessa watched him carefully. His fear was no longer about humiliation. It was about discovery. The officer guided him toward the aisle. Hands at your sides. Richard took one step, then another. As he passed Vanessa, he leaned slightly toward her. You have no idea what you just cost yourself. His voice was almost a whisper. Vanessa did not move. You should be more concerned about what you cost yourself. The officer pulled Richard back. Keep moving. Passengers turned their heads as he was escorted toward the door. No one laughed. No one celebrated. The moment was too serious for that. Vanessa watched a powerful man lose control, not because he had been insulted, but because he believed the rules were for other people. That belief had carried him through the gate. It had placed him in her seat, and now it was carrying him into police custody. At the aircraft door, Richard stopped and looked back. His eyes met Vanessa's. There was hatred in them, but beneath it was something colder. Calculation. Then he was gone. The briefcase remained on the footrest. One of the officers opened it only after putting on gloves. Inside were clothing, legal folders, a laptop, and several sealed envelopes. Nothing immediately dangerous. Still, the security supervisor spoke into his radio. We need a full sweep of the forward cabin and verification of every item this passenger brought on board. Daniel exhaled. Emily looked at Vanessa. Ms. Brooks, I owe you an apology. Vanessa turned toward her. Yes, she said quietly. You do. Before Emily could continue, the captain's voice came over the speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. Departure has been suspended due to a security matter. Further instructions will follow. Outside the window, red and blue lights began flashing across the wet pavement, and Vanessa understood that Richard's arrest was not the end of the problem. It was only the first door opening. The apology never had time to begin. Emily had barely opened her mouth when a sharp chime sounded through the cabin. Then the captain spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Thomas Reynolds. Due to the nature of the security breach, Port Authority and federal security personnel have ordered a complete inspection of the aircraft. We will be returning to the gate. All passengers will need to deplane with their personal belongings." A wave of frustration rolled through the cabin. Seat people sighed. Someone cursed under his breath. A man near the bulkhead immediately began calling his office. Vanessa remained still. 6 hours of delay could destroy her schedule in Paris. The final contract meeting had been planned down to the minute. Lawyers were waiting. Bank transfers were prepared. Solenne's board was expecting her before noon. But none of that mattered more than what she had just seen in Richard's eyes. That sad look had not been defeat. It had been warning. Emily stood beside her with both hands clasped tightly at her waist. "Miss Brooks," she said, "what I did was wrong." Vanessa turned toward her. Emily's face had lost all professional polish. She looked shaken. Younger, somehow. "I saw him," Emily continued. "And I saw you, and I made a judgment before I checked the facts." The words came slowly. "I am sorry." Vanessa studied her for a moment. The easy response would have been anger. The honest response was more difficult. "You did not just question my ticket," Vanessa said. "You decided who belonged before either of us proved anything." Emily lowered her eyes. "I know." "Do you?" Emily looked back up. Vanessa's voice stayed calm. "Because this happens every day in airports, hospitals, banks, offices. People are treated as suspicious, but they are treated as human." Emily swallowed. "I understand." "No," Vanessa said, "you are beginning to." The words were firm but not cruel. Vanessa had learned that accountability without humanity often became another form of punishment. People changed when they were forced to see the harm clearly, not when they were simply humiliated. Emily nodded. "I will remember." "You need to do more than remember." Before Emily could respond, Daniel called from the front. "Everyone needs to move toward the exit. Please keep the aisle clear." Passengers began gathering coats, laptops, and carry-on bags. The cabin filled with the scrape of zippers and the hard thud of overhead bins. Vanessa reached for her tote. Her phone vibrated inside her coat pocket. Restricted number. She almost ignored it. Then it rang again. Vanessa stepped closer to the window and answered. "This is Vanessa Brooks." For a moment there was only static, then a voice spoke. Digitally altered. Flat. Unnatural. Whitmore was the distraction. Vanessa's fingers tightened around the phones. "Who is this? Check your bag." The line went dead. Vanessa did not move. Around her, passengers continued filing into the aisle. Daniel was directing them forward. Emily was helping an elderly man with his coat. No one was watching her. Vanessa placed her tote on the seat. She opened the main compartment. Laptop, passport wallet, a sealed folder containing the Paris contracts. Nothing unusual. Her breathing slowed. Then she noticed the side pocket. The zipper was half open. She never left it that way. Vanessa slipped 2 fingers inside. They touched cold metal. Her heart struck once against her ribs. Hard. She pulled the object out beneath the cover of her coat. It was a steel cylinder, about the length of her hand. Heavy, carefully machined. One end held a small port. The side contained a dark display and a row of recessed switches. It smelled faintly of solvent. Vanessa knew hardware. Aurelia designed industrial energy systems. Her engineers worked with battery failures, thermal events, and electronic disruption testing. This device was not consumer equipment. It was compact, specialized, illegal, and it was inside her bag. The full shape of the trap came together at once. Richard had needed the aircraft grounded. He had needed police. He had needed a full security sweep. If Vanessa walked off the plane carrying this device, a dog chemical sensor would find it. She would be stopped, questioned, fastly arrested. The headlines would move faster than the truth. Black female chief executive detained with suspicious device on international flight. Aurelia's stock would fall before morning. The Solenne deal would be frozen. Whitmore Global would step back into the room. Vanessa closed her hand around the cylinder and felt its weight through the fabric. Richard had not come to Paris to beat her in business. He had come to destroy her credibility before she arrived. Daniel approached. "Ms. Brooks, we need to clear the cabin now." Vanessa looked at him. Her face was calm again. Her decision was already made. "Is the lead federal officer still on the jet bridge?" Daniel stopped. "Yes. Bring him here." His eyes dropped toward her closed hand. "What happened?" Vanessa lowered her voice. "Someone placed evidence in my bag." Daniel's expression changed. Not disbelief, alarm. Vanessa held his gaze. If I walks off this aircraft before I surrender it, the person who planned this wins. Daniel gave one sharp nod and turned toward the door. Vanessa remained beside Suite 1A, the hidden device pressed against her palm. The cabin was nearly empty now. The lights seemed colder, the silence deeper, and for the first time that night, she understood that the stolen seat had never been the real attack. Agent Marcus Hale returned with measured steps, one hand resting near the radio clip to his vest. He was broad-shouldered, close to 45, with a face that revealed very little. Years of federal service had trained him to notice hands first, eyes second, and explanations last. Daniel stayed near the galley. Vanessa stood beside Suite 1A, her right hand closed beneath the edge of her coat. Hale stopped several feet away. Miss Brooks, the purser says you found something in your bag. Yes. What kind of object? I do not know exactly. It appears electronic. Do not move. His voice was calm. Firm. Vanessa kept her breathing steady. I am going to show you my hand. Slowly. Hale nodded once. Vanessa opened her coat and extended her arm, palm facing upward. The steel cylinder rested against. Only for a second. Then his training took over. Set on the seat. I would prefer to hand it directly to you. Set it down. Vanessa obeyed. No sudden motion. No argument. The device touched the leather with a soft, heavy sound. Hale pulled a pair of gloves from his pocket and slipped them on. Then he leaned closer without touching it. A faint chemical odor hung in the air. Who gave this to you? No one. I found it inside a side pocket of my tote. When? Less than 5 minutes ago. Vanessa held up her phone. I received a restricted call. The voice was altered. It said Richard Whitmore was a distraction and told me to check my bag. Hale looked at Daniel. Has anyone else touched the bag? Not since she boarded, Daniel said. Vanessa shook her head. That is not entirely true. Both men looked at her. My luggage was in my hotel room this morning. Several members of my staff had access to the suite. Hale studied her. You think this was planted before you reached the airport? I think it was placed where it would not be found until the aircraft was searched. Hale lifted the device carefully and placed it inside a padded evidence container carried by another officer waiting near the door. Vanessa chose her words energy systems. I have seen similar industrial energy systems used in localized electronic disruption testing. I have seen similar It may be designed to damage storage devices or trigger a thermal event. Hale's eyes sharpened. You are saying it could be dangerous. I am saying it should be treated as dangerous until a specialist says otherwise. The second officer sealed the container and carried it away. For the first time, Vanessa allowed herself to exhale. Hale did not relax. How is Whitmore connected to you? He is the chief executive of Whitmore Global Holdings. His firm competed against mine for the acquisition of Selene Technologies. The company in Paris. Yes, and you won. Yes. Hale glanced toward the empty suite. He enters the aircraft without authorization. He causes a confrontation. Security responds. The plane is evacuated. Then a prohibited device is found in your personal bag. That is the sequence. You believe he wanted you arrested. Vanessa's face remained still. I believe he wanted the world to see me arrested before I could reach Paris. Hale said nothing. Vanessa continued. Public accusations move faster than evidence. By the time the truth was established, my company's stock could have fallen. The acquisition could have been suspended. Whitmore Global could have returned with a new offer. Daniel's face tightened. That is not competition. No, Vanessa said. It is destruction. Hale looked at her with a new kind of attention. Not suspicion, respect. You understand that we still need to examine your bag, your electronics, and your recent contacts. I expect you to. You will also need to provide a full statement. I will. Many powerful people believe cooperation made them look weak. Vanessa believed the opposite. Tri-step did not decision. By keep it not fear procedure. Hale's desk. You made the correct decision by keeping the object here and calling us. What would have happened if I had walked onto the jet bridge with it? His answer came retained immediately. The words settled heavily between them. Vanessa imagined the scene, her hands against a wall, her name over breaking news banners, her employees watching, her mother hearing the word subsct before hearing the word innocent. A cold ache moved through her chest. Hale saw it, his voice softened. You prevented that. Someone warned me, or someone wanted you to find it. Vanessa looked at the possibility had already occurred to her. It could save a life. It could also control a response. Either way, she said, the person who placed it had access to my schedule and my belongings. Hale nodded. That narrows the field. Daniel stepped forward. We can arrange a private room in the lounge while your property is screened. Hale agreed. As Vanessa lifted her empty tote, Emily appeared near the galley curtain. Her eyes were wet. I am sorry, she said again. Vanessa paused beside her. Then let's change how you see the next person. Emily nodded. Vanessa walked toward the door. Outside officers moved across the jet bridge under harsh white lights. Behind her, Suite 1A sat empty. Ahead of her waited a federal investigation. And somewhere inside her own company, someone already knew the first part of the plan had failed. Vanessa sat alone inside a private conference room at the airport lounge, watching rain drag silver lines across the glass. Her tote rested on the table in front of her, empty. Every compartment had been searched. Every electronic device had been scanned. Her laptop had been temporarily taken for inspection, then returned in a clear evidence sleeve. Her passport lay beside a paper cup of coffee she had not touched. Outside the room, delayed passengers moved through the lounge with tired faces and raised voices. Inside, the silence felt heavy. Agent Marcus Hale had finished taking her statement 20 minutes earlier. Now Vanessa was left with the question that frightened her more than the device itself. Who had put it in her bag? Richard Whitmore could have planned the operation. He could have financed it. He could have ordered it. But he could not have entered her hotel room that morning. Vanessa opened her laptop. The secure company network required 2 forms of authentication. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. The Aurelia Energy Group dashboard appeared, followed by travel records, internal calendars, and executive access logs. Only a small number of people knew her exact itinerary. Her executive assistant, her head of legal, her security director, and Ethan Caldwell, the company's chief operating officer. Vanessa paused. Ethan had opposed the Selene acquisition from the beginning, not publicly, not in a way that appeared disloyal. He had called it caution. He argued that Aurelia was expanding too fast, that the European market carried too much political risk, that the purchase price was too high. Vanessa had respected the disagreement. A strong company needed people willing to challenge the chief executive. But there was a difference between honest resistance and hidden sabotage. He accessed the security portal for the Manhattan Hotel. The systems displayed key entries for her suite feats, her own access, housekeeping room surface. Then one name stopped her breath. Ethan Caldwell, 8:15 in the morning. The sec closer to the screen. Ethan had told her he needed to deliver updated financial binders before it in the shower for the airport site. She had been in the shower when he arrived. He left the binders on the dining table. Her tote had been beside the sofa open. Vanessa remembered the moment clearly now. She had walked out wearing a robe and found Ethan near the door. He had smiled, told her to get some sleep on the flight, asked whether she was still carrying the signed contracts personally. At the time, it had sounded like concern. Now it sounded like confirmation. Vanessa closed her eyes. Betrayal from an enemy hurt. Betrayal from someone trusted altered the shape of the past. Every conversation became suspect. Every compliment sounded rehearsed. Every shared victory felt contaminated. Her phone rang. Ethan Caldwell. Vanessa stared at his name. Then she answered. Ethan. Vanessa, thank God. His voice was bright. Too bright. I saw the alert about the aircraft. Are you all right? I am fine. What happened? A security issue. What kind? Vanessa looked at the access log on her screen. An unauthorized passenger was removed. A short silence followed. Whitmore? The name came too quickly. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. I did not say who it was. A business, I assumed. The news report mentioned a business executive. Naming him yet. Another pause. This one longer. Ethan cleared his throat. Well, people are already talking. You know how fast information moves. Vanessa leaned back. Yes, I do. Did they aircraft? They stressed. And your luggage? The question was quiet. Careful. Vanessa felt the last doubt leave her. My bag is beside me, she said. They did not find anything important. Silence. Ethan recovered quickly. That is good. Very good. Vanessa allowed her voice to soften. The flight should allowed her voice to soften. The flight should leave late to Paris, of course. That's still going wise. Why, with the delay, the Selene board may rescind it. Whitmore's lawyers could already be there. Vanessa watched his face in her mind. The loyal officer. The cautious advisor. The man who claimed to protect Aurelia from reckless decisions. You still informed, she said. I am trying to protect the company. No, Vanessa replied. You are trying to protect yourself. The line went silent. Dassel's chain, Ethan voice talking, but I have the hotel access records, a small sound to sweet this morning, to barely a breath, to deliver documents. You entered while I was in the shower. You knew I was coming. I knew you were bringing binders. I did not know you would touch my luggage. I did not touch your luggage. Vanessa's tone hardened. The federal agents will determine that. Ethan spoke quickly now. You are tired. You are under pressure. Do not make accusations you cannot take back. Vanessa looked through the glass wall at Traveler hurrying past. People carrying ordinary burdens, missed flights, sick relatives, long goodbyes. Power was not proven by crushing people beneath it. It was proven by refusing to become what had harmed you. I am not accusing you without evidence, she said. I am giving you the chance to understand what comes next. Tab. His breathing stopped. Why? Because Aurelia will need a new chief operating officer, Vanessa, and because the FBI will want to ask you about Richard Whitmore. She ended the call. For several seconds, and she sat without moving. Then the departure screen outside the room changed. Paris flight. Boarding resumed. Vanessa closed her laptop and stood. She had lost trust. She had not lost control, and in Paris, the people counting on her absence were about to learn the difference. The flight touched down in Paris under a hard gray sky. Vanessa had not slept. For most of the night, she sat in Suite 1A with the privacy door closed, reading contracts under the soft glow of the overhead lamp. The seat Richard Whitmore had tried to take from her had finally become hers, but it offered no peace. Every page carried Ethan Caldwell's fingerprints now. Every margin note he had made felt false. By the time the aircraft reached the gate at Charles de Gaulle, Vanessa had built a complete timeline. She had copied the hotel access logs, preserved Ethan's messages, and sent encrypted files to Agent Hale and Aurelia's general counsel. She did not know whether Ethan had acted alone. She did know one thing. The deal had to close before Whitmore Global could turn suspicion into leverage. Vanessa moved through passport control with her tote pressed close to her side. The bag had been cleared by federal agents before departure, but she still felt the weight of the device that was no longer there. A memory could be heavier than metal. Her phone connected to the French network. Messages flooded the screen. Her legal team, her board chair, 3 missed calls from the chairman of Solan Technologies. Then a message from Laura Bennett, Aurelia's lead counsel. Whitmore's attorneys are already in the boardroom. They are claiming you were detained in New York. They want Solan to suspend the sale. Vanessa stopped walking. Around her, travelers rolled suitcases across the polished floor. Families embraced. Drivers held signs behind a metal barrier. The world continued as if nothing had happened. Vanessa typed one reply. Do not correct them. I am on my way. A black sedan waited outside the terminal. The driver opened the rear door. Solan Technologies, Vanessa said, as quickly as traffic allows. Paris moved past the window in wet shades of stone and steel. Motorcycles slipped between cars. Horns sounded. Rain blurred the buildings along the highway. Vanessa watched the city without seeing it. At Solan headquarters, Andrew Mercer stood at the far end of a long conference table. He was Whitmore Global's senior attorney. 45, polished, controlled, known for turning uncertainty into pressure. A presentation glowed on the screen behind him. Regulatory risk, leadership instability, potential federal investigation. At the head of the table, Solan's founder, Henri Laurent, listened with his hands folded beneath his chin. Andrew spoke in a low, sympathetic voice. We take no pleasure in this, Mr. Laurent, but credible reports indicate that Ms. Brooks was detained after a serious security incident at Kennedy Airport. Laura Bennett sat across from him, her expression tight. That is not confirmed. Andrew turned toward her. Then where is your chief executive? Laura said nothing. Vanessa had instructed her not to. Andrew mistook the silence for weakness. Whitmore Global is prepared to honor its original offer, he continued. We can wire the funds today, no delay, no uncertainty. Henri looked troubled. This agreement is with Aurelia, an agreement subject to stability and conduct provisions. Andrew clicked to the next slide. If Ms. Brooks is under federal investigation, board has a duty to reconsider. The conference room door opened, not loudly, just enough. Every face turned. Vanessa stood inside. Her black coat was still damp from the rain. Her eyes were tired. Her posture was not. Andrew's hand froze over the remote. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Vanessa closed the door behind her. Please continue, she said. I would like to hear how my absence ends my company. Laura stood so quickly that her chair rolled backward. Vanessa, relief broke across her face. Henry rose. Ms. Brooks, are you all right? I am now. Andrew recovered first. We were given information that you had been detained. You were given a story designed to make you act before checking the facts. His expression tightened. I am simply protecting my client's interests. Your client is in federal custody. The room went silent. Andrew lowered the remote. Vanessa walked toward the table. Richard Whitmore boarded my flight without a valid ticket. He entered through a secured gate without scanning a boarding pass. He occupied my seat and refused to leave. Andrew's face remained still, but his eyes changed. Vanessa saw recognition, not surprise. Federal authorities removed him from the aircraft. She continued. They are investigating the incident, along with evidence of a coordinated attempt to interfere with this acquisition. Henri leaned forward. What kind of evidence? Vanessa placed her tote on the table. The sound was soft. Still, Andrew flinched. A prohibited electronic device was planted in my luggage. Several Selene directors exchanged alarmed looks. Vanessa kept her eyes on Andrew. It was meant to be discovered during the security sweep Richard caused. That is an extraordinary accusation, Andrew said. Yes. Do you have proof? The FBI has the device. They also have Richard's electronics. Andrew's confidence cracked, only slightly. Vanessa noticed his right hand moving toward his phone. Check it, she said. He looked at her. Go ahead. Andrew picked up the phone. New alerts filled the screen. Whitmore Global offices searched under federal warrant. Richard Whitmore held pending investigation. Regulators reviewing acquisition-related communications. The color drained from Andrew's face. Vanessa turned toward Henri. I apologize for arriving late, but Aurelia is stable. The financing is secure, and I am here to sign. Henri looked at her for a long moment. Then he closed Andrew's presentation folder. Mr. Mercer, sir, he said, your meeting is over. Andrew stood frozen. Vanessa faced him one last time. You came here expecting an empty chair. Her voice was quiet. You should have checked who was still standing. Andrew Mercer left the boardroom without another word. The heavy door closed behind him. For several seconds, no one moved. Then Henri Laurent looked at Vanessa and slowly extended his hand. Let us finish what we started. The tension in the room did not disappear. It changed shape. Fear gave way to focus. Lawyers reopened folders. Financial officers checked transfer instructions. The Selene directors returned to their seats, still shaken by what they had heard, but no longer uncertain about who was in control. Vanessa removed her damp coat and placed it over the back of a chair. Her body ached from exhaustion. Her eyes burned. Her shoulders felt heavy enough to break. But when she sat across from Henri, her hands were steady. Laura Bennett slid the final agreement toward her. Everything remains as negotiated, Laura said quietly. No changes. Vanessa reviewed the signature page one last time. Not because she doubted her team, but because trust did not remove responsibility. That lesson had become painfully clear. She picked up the pen. Across the table, Henri signed first, then just Vanessa. The sound of ink moving off paper was almost ordinary, yet it carried the weight of years. The nights Vanessa had spent building Aurelia from a rented office. The investors who had doubted her. The banks that had questioned her experience. The rooms where people looked past her until they realized she controlled the decisions. Now, her name completed one of the largest clean energy acquisitions of the year. Laura's phone vibrated. She checked the message and looked up. The transfer has cleared. A quiet breath moved through the room. Henri smiled for the first time that morning. Then Selene is officially part of Aurelia. Applause followed. It was not loud. It was not theatrical. It was the restrained applause of people who understood how close the agreement had come to collapsing. Vanessa allowed off one small smile. Then her phone rang. Agent Hale. She stepped away from the table and answered near the window. Vanessa Brooks, we found something, Hale said. His voice was controlled but urgent. Vanessa watched rain beat against the glass. What? Whitmore's phone was searched under warrant. Most of the recent messages were deleted, but the recovery team pulled fragments from an encrypted application. Vanessa's grip tightened. Ethan, yes. The word landed without surprise. Still, it hurt. Hale continued. They discussed your hotel, your departure time, and a package that needed to be placed in your luggage before you left for the airport. Vanessa, close up suit. Even after the access records, even after Ethan's reaction on the phone, a small part of her had wanted another explanation. There was none. Do you have enough for an arrest? We have enough to question him and preserve his devices. We are coordinating with the FBI field office in New York. Do not approach him yet. Hale paused. Why? I want him in the board meeting. That could create risk. He will hear the evidence in front of the people he betrayed. Hale's silence lasted several seconds. Sitcher not law enforcement. Ms. Brooks, it's no. I am his chief executive. I have a duty to protect the company, and we have a duty to protect the investigation. I will not reveal anything you have not authorized. Hale exhaled. Send me the meeting link. I will join when the time is right. Vanessa ended the call. When she returned to the table, Laura immediately read her face. They found him. Vanessa nodded. Laura looked down. She had worked beside Ethan for 11 years. Their families had shared dinners. Their children had attended the same summer programs. Betrayal did not stop with the person targeted. It spread through everyone who had believed the lie. Why would he do this? Laura asked. Vanessa sat beside her. Because he decided the agreement gave him the right to destroy what others built. That is not the man I knew. It may be the man he became. Laura's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. Vanessa lowered her voice. Do not blame yourself for trusting someone who chose to betray that trust. Laura looked at her. Vanessa knew the words were meant for both of them. Trust was not weakness. The wrongdoing belonged to the person who abused it. By late afternoon, Vanessa sat inside a private office at Selene headquarters. The Paris skyline glowed beyond the windows as evening settled over the city. On her laptop, the Aurelia board members appeared one by one, 12 faces. Then Ethan Caldwell joined. He wore a dark suit and a careful smile. Vanessa, he said, congratulations on closing the acquisition. Thank you, Ethan. His eyes searched her face. He wanted reassurance. She gave him none. The board chair cleared his throat. The painted purpose. Vanessa, you requested this emergency session. I did. She shared her screen. The hotel access log appeared. Ethan's smile disappeared. Vanessa let the silence build. Then she spoke. This morning I completed the Selene acquisition. A few directors nodded. But before we discuss integration, we must address an internal betrayal that nearly destroyed this company. Ethan leaned forward. Vanessa, whatever you think happened, we should discuss it privately. No, she said, her voice calm. This was done in secret. She looked directly into the camera. It will be answered in the light. Ethan stared at the hotel access log on the screen. Then his eyes shifted, left, right, down, looking for an exit that did not exist. That proves I entered the room, he said. Vanessa sat still before the Paris, nothing more. Vanessa sat still before the worst window. Evening light rested against the glass behind her. Across the Atlantic, 12 board members watched in silence. You entered my suite while I was in the shower, Vanessa said. You knew where my bag was. You knew my flight. You knew I was carrying the final contracts. I delivered financial binders, and a device was later found inside a pocket I had not opened. Ethan leaned closer to his camera. This is speculation. Vanessa clicked once. A new window appeared on the shared screen. Encrypted message fragments, hotel location, departure time, package confirmed. Ethan's face lost color. Several directors inhaled sharply. The board chair removed his glasses. Where did this come from? A new participant entered the call. Agent Marcus Hale appeared from a federal office in New York. His expression was calm and direct. These records were recovered from a device seized under federal warrant from Richard Whitmore, Hale said. The messages were exchanged with a phone registered through a corporate account controlled by Mr. Caldwell. Ethan's mouth opened. No sound came out. Hale continued. The recovered communications discuss access to Ms. Brooks's hotel suite, placement of an electronic device in her luggage, and the need to trigger an aircraft security inspection before she reached Paris. One director shook her head slowly. Another looked away. They had trusted Ethan with payroll, acquisitions, employee pensions, and confidential strategy. Now his face sat in the center of their screens like a stranger wearing a familiar name. This is a misunderstanding, Ethan said. His voice cracked. Vanessa watched him without satisfaction. She had imagined anger. Instead, she felt grief. Not for the position he would lose. For the man he could have remained. You disagreed with the acquisition, she said. You had every right to challenge me. You could have called for another vote. You could have resigned. You could have told the board you believed I was wrong. Her voice tightened. But you decided my life was an acceptable price for winning an argument. No. Silence said. They were going to take it. Silence filled the virtual room. Then the board chair spoke. I move that Ethan Caldwell be terminated immediately for cause, pending the full results of the federal investigation. Seconded, another director said. The vote moved quickly. One by one, the directors raised their hands, unanimous. Ethan watched his career disappear in real time. "You cannot do this," he said. Vanessa's eyes stayed on him. "We just did." Agent Hale leaned toward his camera. "Mr. Caldwell, federal agents are outside your office. Do not leave the building. Do not destroy any records. Follow their instructions." A heavy knock sounded through Ethan's microphone. He turned toward his office door. Another knock, louder. "Federal Bureau of Investigation." Ethan stood so quickly that his chair rolled backward and struck the wall. For 1 second, fear stripped away everything else: the title, the suit, the confidence. He was simply a man facing the consequences of his choices. The screen went dark when he closed his laptop. No one spoke for several moments. Vanessa ended the screen share. The evidence disappeared. Her face remained. "So did I." The board members looked shaken. Vanessa slowed her voice. "Trust not is not foolish. Loyalty is not weakness. The shame belongs to the person who betrays it, not to the people who offered it in good faith." The board chair nodded. "What happens now? It's supporti fully with investigators. We support anyone affected by this. And we build stronger systems without becoming suspicious of everyone." That distinction mattered to Vanessa. Security without humanity became another kind of fear. Accountability without dignity became revenge. She wanted neither. The meeting ended shortly afterward. Vanessa remained alone in the Paris office. Below her, the city lights stretched across streets. Cars moved like quiet rivers. Somewhere far away, Richard Whitmore sat in federal custody. Ethan was being led from an office he once controlled, and Vanessa was still standing. Not because she had shouted louder, not because she had more money, because she had refused to surrender the truth. Weeks later, Aurelia announced new internal safeguards, stronger whistleblower protections, and mandatory bias training for travel partners. Emily Parker wrote Vanessa a letter describing how the incident had changed the way she treated passengers. Vanessa kept it, not as proof of victory, as proof that people could still learn. The seat in first class had started the confrontation, but the real lesson was never about where someone sat. It was about how quickly human beings decide who belongs, and how much damage begins when no one challenges that decision. If this story stayed with you, share the moment that affected you most. And remember, respect should never depend on a title, a suit, a bank account, or the color of someone's skin.